Belarus, over 1,000 arrested at latest anti-government protest. More than 1,000 people have been arrested during fresh demonstrations over the disputed presidential election in Belarus, a human rights group says. The tally from Vyazma came after protesters took to the streets in the capital Minsk on Sunday amid growing anger over the death of an opposition activist. He died on Thursday after what protesters believe was a beating by security forces. The government denies responsibility. Huge crowds have taken part in weekly protests after the country's longtime leader Alexander Lukashenko said he won the August vote, which was widely viewed as rigged. What's happening in Belarus? Kremlin looks to keep Belarus in Moscow's orbit. If you croak, we don't care. Brutality in Belarus. As in previous weeks, thousands of people took to the streets of the capital Minsk and other cities on Sunday. Witnesses say he had scuffled with suspected plainclothes police officers who were attempting to remove demonstrators' red and white ribbons. The EU described his death as outrageous and shameful. The Vyazma human rights organization says more than 1,000 people were arrested in Minsk and other cities after the latest rallies. One witness told Reuters news agency police had fired rubber bullets at protesters, while Russia's Interfax news agency said police had used tear gas to disperse the crowd. They also laid flowers at the site where protester Roman Bondarenko, 31, was detained before his death earlier this week. The disputed election in August has led to a months-long political crisis in Belarus. The main opposition leader, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, said she had attracted between 60 and 70% of the vote and was forced into exile in neighboring Lithuania immediately after the election. But Mr. Lukashenko, who has ruled the country for 26 years and is backed by Russian President Vladimir Putin, announced that he had won and refused to resign. The Belarus opposition has organized huge demonstrations every Sunday since the election, usually with more than 100,000 people thronging the streets of Minsk. The EU and US government agree with the opposition that the August election was rigged, with brutality meted out to Mr. Lukashenko's opponents. Mr. Lukashenko has ignored repeated opposition calls for negotiations to rerun the election under free and fair conditions, to end police brutality and release political prisoners. Thousands of demonstrators have been arrested. The Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, which monitors elections, said earlier this month that human rights abuses since the vote had been found to be massive and systematic and proven beyond doubt. And called for the official result handing Mr. Lukashenko victory to be annulled due to irregularities at all stages of the process. The EU, meanwhile, has added Mr. Lukashenko and his son Viktor to its sanctions blacklist of Belarus officials. Many now feel they need to act if they want to live in a better country. They include Andrei Pogorelo, a 29-year-old locksmith from Grodno. Before the August presidential election, Mr. Pogorelo had never been interested in politics. He was in a cafe when the first clashes took place in Minsk that night. He went out to see why the crowd had gathered and witnessed scenes that changed his life. It was all peaceful. Suddenly savagery started. I saw with my own eyes how a policeman hit a young girl with a baton at least 3 times. Officers viciously roughed up one guy. That day police wanted to break people, not detain them. The next day Andrei Pogorelo joined the protest and he has attended rallies regularly since then. Wide range of demonstrators. There are now marches of students, doctors, pensioners, people with disabilities. Prominent athletes openly demand new elections and an end to police violence. Actors sing opposition anthems ahead of their theater performances, to show solidarity with detainees. Activists organize flash mobs at shopping malls and shoppers stop, mesmerized by the impromptu street opera. These public displays inspire the protesters and show that their movement is not broken. The authorities try relentlessly to take down opposition posters, only to find new ones there the next day. Police awkwardly climb up fences to remove flags while activists watch and film them. One slogan which went viral said, "You can repaint the wall, but you cannot repaint your conscience." Remarkably, despite the crackdown, the protesters have remained mostly peaceful. Their response to beatings is to turn up at the next rally carrying flowers. When you watch the Oman riot police and their brutality, you realize that you don't want to be like them, said Sviatlana Stankiewicz, a 32-year-old artist who spent 9 days in jail for demonstrating. "I show my power by persistence, steadfastness, and confidence. The past 100 days have illustrated how powerful this peaceful approach is. All that force could not make people love Mr. Lukashenko, and he appears to be losing this battle."